G'day, I'm Mark Hoth and welcome to Swift Almanac, where we teach you the basics of Swift in 10 minutes or less. Today's lesson is properties. So let's take a look at properties in 10 minutes or less. Properties. Properties associate data with a class, struct, or enum. Stored properties can be either constant, immutable, using the let keyword, or they can be variable or mutable using the var keyword. Computed properties are the result of a class, struct, or enum calculation. So stored properties. Here we have a structure, fixed length range, and it has a variable first value, which is an integer, and has a constant length, which is also an integer. So when we create a variable called range of 3 items, then the fixed length range, we're passing 2 parameters as part of the initializer. First value will be 0 and the length will be 3. So we can change, this is a variable, and we can change the first value to 6. However, we're unable to change the second value of length without getting error, and that's because we've defined it within the structure as a constant, and there's the error. If you declare a struct as a constant, then you cannot change the associated members, even if they're declared as variables. That's because structs are a value type. So in this instance, we've created a constant range of 4 items, fixed length range, first value 3, length of 4, and if we attempt to change first value, which is defined as variable, we're going to get this error because the structure itself is constant. The lazy keyword. You can declare variables with the lazy keyword. This means that the variable will not be allocated until the first time it is used. Note that you can use lazy with let constant properties. Lazy can be used when you need to initialize a class or struct and then obtain the value of the variables from a different source. Also, if the value is the result of a complex or long computation, then lazy allows you to calculate it only if it is needed. So if we have a class called data importer and we have a file name and we have another class data manager, then we can essentially declare this lazy variable the importer and another variable the data string. So we create a manager from the data manager, and we can add some data, manage.data.append some data, and then append some more data. But because the importer is lazy, it's not yet allocated. But when we print manager.importer.filename, which is necessary as part of this data importer class definition, then that will cause the lazy variable to load, and then it will be in memory. Computed properties. So if we have a structure for a point, which has got a variable of x and y, which are both doubles, and a structure for size, which has got 2 variables, width and height, which are again both doubles, and we have a structure rect, then we can create the origin point and the size, and then we can have a calculation of center, which says that when we want to get the center, we will do this calculation and return these 2 temporary variables of center x and center y, and we can have a setter which will also set these origin x and y points based on the new center which has been passed, which will be a point, and the size and width that we already have. Alternatively, the setter cannot supply a value, in which case the keyword new value will be used. So here in the setter, we're not using any value that's been passed, we're using this keyword new value. If a computed property only has a getter but no setter, then it is read-only. So here's a structure, width, height, and depth for a cuboid, and the volume is gettable and just returns the volume of the cuboid based on the information contained within its own variables. Additionally, you can remove the get enclosure and just have var volume double, returning width, height, and depth. Property observers allow you to see and respond to changes to the value of a property, obviously a variable, because constants don't change. You can define either of both of WillSet just before the value is stored, or DidSet just after the new value is stored. If you implement WillSet, then a constant parameter with the new value is passed, and if you implement DidSet, then a constant parameter with the old value is passed. So if we have a step counter, total steps is equal to 0 by default, but then we'll add these WillSet, total new steps, about to set total steps to new total steps, and DidSet, if total steps is greater than the old value, we've added this many steps. So down here, if we have a step counter and set the total steps to 200, it'll say about to set total steps to 200, and then it will say, after it has been set, added 200 steps. Then when we do the 360, it will say about to set total steps to 360, added 160 steps, and finally about to set the total steps to 896, added 536 steps. Of course, you'd want to move forward and not backward in your step count. Otherwise, it should be saying removed. You can create computed and observed properties for both global, those created outside of a function, closure method or type, and local variables, which are those created within a function, closure method or type. And there's also type properties. Instant properties can have a different value for every instance of the type. Type properties are the same for every instance of the type. So type properties use the keyword static to denote that all instances of that type will have the same value. So here we've got a structure called SumStructure. We have a static variable, the stored type property called SumValue, and we have another value, new value, which is a string. Here we're going to print out SumStructure.storedToPropertyPripe, which is SumValue, and SumStructure.storedToPropertyPripe equals some other value. It changes to some other value when we print that out. Then if we create another structure called SumStructure, and we go SumStructure.new value equals a bigger value, we can print out SumStructure.storedTypeProperty, and it comes out with a bigger value. Because the property storedTypeProperty is static to SumStructure, it can only be accessed by a method or a getter setter. Well, that's it for properties. If you have a question about the tutorial, then please leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter @SwiftAlmanac. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free, and check out our website at www.swiftalmanac.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.